So now that we've talked about using the trim and clip brushes along with the Dynamesh subtract functionality, let's talk about another hard surface detail process you can use inside of ZBrush, which is using Projection Master. To start off, I just have my model loaded here. The actual helmet was generated through the procedural process of panel loops. Then I went through with the standard brushes and transpose lines and masking and have sculpted some of the details out. I've also gone through with the clip and trim brushes to add some more details and then use the Dynamesh subtract to kind of further change the surface of the model to match more of our reference over here. So I'm going to hold Alt and select the part of the model I want to add more details to with Projection Master. Then I'm just going to rotate the model around and kind of position that area on the canvas so that's looking straight into the section there. So now we need to go activate Projection Master. So Projection Master is actually located up here. If I just come over here and click this button, it's going to open a dialog up. By default it's set to colors, so I actually don't have any poly painting on the model right now, so I'm going to disable that color function. And then I'm really just concerned about the actual mesh geometry, so I'm going to turn deformation on. Right now it has a normalized check as well, so we're just going to let that go for now, and we're just going to come over here and hit drop. Now when you hit drop, it actually took your 3D object of your model and then turned it to 2.5D. So now it's this kind of 2.5D pixel setup on your actual canvas. So by default it gives you the single layer brush, and you can come through and just kind of paint on the surface right there. Since this is 2.5D, you're going to notice that it is going to look like it's actually distorting your geometry of your mesh, but it's not really. It's just doing a 2.5D distortion on top, and then when we come back over and hit that Projection Master button again, it's going to pick up anything that you apply on your model right here. So you can basically come down here and you'll see there's a whole bunch of 2.5D brushes you can use. So we've got alpha brushes, simple brushes, smudges, paint, hook, deco, all sorts of different little things. So we can come through and actually start using these to kind of describe details on the surface of the mesh right here. So one of the good ones that I like to use quite a bit is come over here and just select this alpha brush, and then you can come over to this alpha channel tab over here and just pick an alpha. So if I want to add, say, this alpha 33, which is an arrow, to my model right here, I can come and change my stroke to, say, a drag rectangle and drag that out, and you'll see it come in like that. After you have it drawn out, you can now switch to your kind of transpose move stuff over here and move this guy around. So you just grab this edge here and kind of put them on the surface of your model. You're going to notice that it's going to look like it's going in and out of your model, and that's because of the 2.5D system. So you can kind of find a happy area where it's not penetrating too much. You can also, with move active, just come over here and click off and drag up and down, and it's going to change the depth in which it's going to come in. So you can kind of go over here and just kind of slide up and down, and it's going to change that Z depth in these 2.5D pixels, so you can get that arrow to fit nice and neat on that center of your model there. Now after you have this stuff kind of generated, you can also copy it. So if you wanted multiple arrows, you can just hit Shift S right now and it's going to copy that, and then you can use move again and duplicate that arrow off, and then you come over and you can slide it up and down and kind of get it so it's not embedded so bizarrely on your model. So that might be a little too much. I'm going to move it back over here, so like so. After you're happy with what you've kind of drawn out, there's, pretty much you can use any alphas. There's also a whole bunch of strokes, so if you want to do lines and things like that, you can get a whole bunch of kind of different functionality going using this 2.5D system. So it's really nice for adding panel details on your model very quick, just using black and white alphas and simple sculpting techniques with standard brushes. So after you're happy with the results, you just come back to Projection Master and click that, and then you're going to come here and just click this Pick Up Now button. And so it's going to take that 2.5D and then apply it to your 3D mesh. So if I rotate now, you can see it actually took those arrows and applied them into the surface of the model. Now this process can be undone if needed, so you can just take Control Z and it's going to go back to your original one. But if you want it back, you can just redo. But you can see those details that we kind of painted in with Projection Master are now coming in like so. So I use Projection Master quite a bit in the areas of painting kind of holes and things like that on the surface, so for rivets and things like that. Also text, if you want to add any kind of text elements, you can easily just paint the text in really quick and then it'll update across your model. Now you will notice that we only had these kind of attributes be applied to the single side of my mesh, and this is because we didn't have double-sided turned on. Now to get double-sided to work with Projection Master, you just want to make sure you have your model kind of in a view like this, where you're actually going to be shooting through, because projection is going to do that 2.5D plane and then generate those details into the surface of your model. So if we come to the side here and say we want to add some holes right here on that part, and we also want to go on the other side, what we need to do for that is first I'm just going to isolate this so it's the only thing visible, and then make sure it's a little bit large on my canvas. Then I'm going to first come to the Display Properties tab over here and turn on this double option right here. And this is going to let this model here render with double-sided faces. So it's going to render the interior faces and the exterior faces on the model. This is helpful when you're actually sculpting on a mesh, and if you hold Control-Shift and hide a part, you can kind of see the interior surface to check for problem areas and things like that. So if I turn double off, you'll see it's no longer rendering double-sided, and if I turn it back on, I'm getting that feature like that. Well, turning this on is a requirement to actually get this Projection Master option to work, to actually project the details on both sides of your model using that symmetry plane. So now that I have this framed, I'm going to come back up to Projection Master and click this button. I'm going to make sure double-sided is on. I'm going to make sure that I have that same deformation set, and I'm going to hit drop now. So now I'm back into that 2.5D setup. So I'm going to come and change my stroke to a drag rectangle and change my alpha to something more kind of harsh and bolty like, so this alpha 14. And I'm just going to drag this out here like so. And then I'm going to switch to move and just kind of move the position a little bit. And then I want two of those kind of bolts right there, and I want them to be the same size. So I'm going to hit Shift S, which will snapshot that. And then I can just move the other bolt over there. And then just click off the model and kind of scale it into the surface a little bit so it's not hanging out so high like that. And now I'm going to go back to draw. I now want to do like a negative attribute in here to kind of get that inner kind of part on these actual bolts. So I'm going to come up here and select subtract and then draw another one, and you're going to see it's going to update in a subtraction functionality, so you can see it's actually doing an inner circle. If you want that a little bit deeper, just come up here and increase your intensity, and then you can draw it again, and you're going to get that circle a little bit stronger. So sometimes, depending on the amount of resolution you have on your model, you may want these circles to be exaggerated a little bit in the actual intensity. Now as you can see, I drew this one out and it wasn't right straight on the surface, so I can switch back to that move option again, and now just reposition that guy so it's in the center of the other circle, like so. So it looks a little bit better there. And then I can hit Shift S, which will duplicate that, and then move it over the other part, and then click off and move to kind of bring that circle up a little bit, like so. So you can see now I have those two areas kind of generated, and they look pretty much identical. I can now hit drop, and you can see how it looks. And now I can go back to that Projection Master and do Pick Up Now. And as you can see, those details have now been transferred onto the model, and it's also gone through both sides. So it actually just projected through every single face that was visible with that double-sided. So this is a quick way to kind of come through and add these little kind of elements, and since you can kind of clone those shapes around, you can get really nice kind of results with very exact sizing and precision as you move around your model. So now I want to talk about one more functionality of Projection Master, and that is using it in tangent with the clip brushes. So I'm first going to get out of solo mode, and then I'm going to come up here and just select this back portion, so just holding Alt and clicking, and then I'm going to go back in solo mode, so this is the only thing visible on my canvas. So now I want to go through and say put some little circular kind of vents on the back of the actual helmet right here. So I go back into Projection Master, make sure my deformation and normalization is on, and then come in and just go to Z subtract, up that intensity, and just draw some little circles through here. So you can just see just coming through and getting those kind of circles generated. Now after I have these kind of positioned where I want them to go, just go back into Projection Master and just do Pick Up. and they're looking, pretty circular at this angle. But as soon as I rotate the model around, you're going to notice they're not really complete circles. So since I had, this kind of deformation on the surface of my model geometry here, that these circles are only rendering spherical if I'm at this angle. So as soon as I start rotating around the model and going around that bend, you're going to see I'm starting to get, a lot of kind of ellipses and ovals out of those shapes. So how can you get it to work where these are always going to be a constant circle on that surface? So I'm just going to undo that feature there. And now to get this to work, I just need to go in and select a clip brush. So I'm going to hit B on my keyboard, isolate by the letter C, and find the actual clip curve brush right here. Now you're just going to get a little warning that's going to pop up and tell you it's going to be the active selection brush. So I'm just going to hit OK. So now I can hold Control and Shift and drag that clip curve out. Now, as we discussed in the videos on the trim and clip brushes, anything on that shaded side of this line is going to clip. So you can just clip that section there. Now, once you have this section clipped out, you could now grab a standard brush and say go to drag rectangle, and then grab a harsh alpha, so like alpha 14, and come in and kind of add your circular parts like this. Well, that's going to give you that flat surface there, but the clip curve brush has another function that also plays really well with Projection Master, and that is a function called unclip. So if you hold Control and Space, you're going to bring up this menu again. So here's that brush radius button we talked about in the trim and clip videos, and then right below it there is an unclip button. So if I click this unclip button, anything that was clipped before we sculpted is going to revert back to its unclipped state. So if I just come here and click that, you're going to notice that this form right here has been unclipped, but those circles still stayed. So this is going to allow you to come and flatten areas on your model that may have a lot of round nature to them, then apply the Projection Master step, and then unclip and get those details to be a little more precise and not skewed when you rotate around them. So I'm just going to undo a few steps back and get back to the clipped version like so. So I'm just going to position my model so it's a little bit larger on the canvas, and then I'm going to go and click the Projection Master button and make sure deformation is turned on and go to drop now. Now I'm going to come over here and select the alpha brush and change that alpha to, say, alpha 14. I'm going to make sure I'm in Z subtract mode and change my stroke to drag rect. So now I can come in and drag those kind of holes out like so. I can increase the intensity on that so it's a little bit deeper like that. And then I can go to move and using the actual functionality of clicking off and rotating, kind of adjust the depth on that as well, and then hit Shift S to kind of duplicate these holes across the surface of the model here. So something like that. And then go back into draw mode and then go into Projection Master and do pick up now. So as you'll notice, it came in and it actually projected those holes right onto the piece there. So now we can go into the unclip function, so holding Control and Spacebar and then clicking unclip, and you'll see that those circles have now been unclipped. And if you also notice, as you kind of rotate around here, those circles are protruding straight back into the surface there, so it's not getting any of that surface normal distortion that we may have gotten if we tried to generate these holes on a surface that was not flat. So really nice kind of result through there. So that is the process of using Projection Master to kind of add a little more details across the surface of your model. It's very nice because you can go to that kind of flat format and move stuff around precisely and then just pick it back up, and it's actually going to displace the geometry across the surface. So we'll do a little more Projection Master as we continue building a helmet inside of ZBrush.